Hello, artists, back one more time for a third time. Let me get these out of here. I'm going to talk about the eyeball because I think some of the things I had the most questions on was the fur and layering, and then also the eyes. How do you get the eyes? Well, we talked about how we're going to be using complementary pairs, right? And since the blue and orange are the colors across the color wheel from each other, they're the complementary pair we're going to be working with. Complements are across from each other. And since he's orangey-ish, we decided that's his main color. Then we're going to use the blue mixed with the orange to get the darks. So I have my sample here. I'll push this up so it's a little more on the screen. And it is dark, so I need a lot of pigment here, which means more blue, but I always start with orange. Let's make sure both of these are wet. We'll go in this top one here so you can see it better. Wow, my paint's dried out quick. Let's get them wet here so we have nice wet paints to work with. All right, so orange. Let's get some orange in there. Lots of good pigment. I'm gonna mix it with a bigger brush just to get more in there quicker. There we go. There we go. All right, so I got there. I'm gonna leave some to get the more orangey center. Now it's dull. It's not orange, right? So both of those are gonna need some blue. A little bit of blue in this one so it can be the brown, his brown eyes. That's looking not bad. There's a yellowier side to them too. So I think I'm gonna get some yellow here and just put that on the side. Because there's like a warm tone to it. Get the yellow in there. That's better. That looks more warm toned like his eyes to me. And then I'm going to come over here and put some blue in here to get the dark. So I need a good amount of pigment, a good amount of paint on this part to get, because this is going to act like my black, right? This is going to be the dark. I could, if I wanted to, I don't, put a little bit of black with this so that I can add this to it and make it, but it's going to look pretty dark against the rest of my colors and it's going to be just fine. So I don't need to do that. I think that's going to work well. I'm going to leave that there in case I want more paint on there. Now, let's see, what do I got on my brush? So I'm going to start with the light, always light to dark, right? And I'm going to try and leave a little tiny white in his eye. We'll see if that happens. If not, I can come back with a white colored pencil later and add that. It's probably not going to stay. Let's just call it like it is right now. All right, so I'm going to start with the lighter here in the center of his eye. And then bring this around. Get that kind of shape. And one of the things people don't tend to realize when they're painting eyes is that your eye, remember what it is. It's a sphere that sits in a socket in your skull, right? Sits in a hole in your skull. So if we actually take the time to make this look shaded, let's take a little red in there to get that dark. Come on. Oh, my paint's dried up. Usually I soften them all with a little touch of water first. We'll use a little bit of blue. So take the extra water off of there. I'm going to come into this edge and I want it to be darker so that it gives the look of, it's a little more than I wanted, gives the look of the rounded eyeball. It will look more correct if, looks like there's blood in his eye right now. Let's blend that in, huh? If I can show like a shadow around his eye. So I'm going to do that and let that color blend in. Now, I do want this inside part to blend in because it looks pretty like it's soft in there, right? So I'm going to add the dark and let it wet into wet blend in with the rest of the eye. Now, if it gets too much, it's getting a little more than I wanted, I can lift it. Take a little moisture off of there, a little water out of there. I don't know. Do I try to keep the white? Let's see. I'm trying. There's something about that little white in the eye that gives them a little bit of life. All right. So there's a darker on that side. Try to get darker. I got the light. I see the light here. Now I want this to dry so that I don't get too much blending in there. So really quickly I'm going to dry. While I do that, I have my dark mixed up. And I'm going to, after I get the dark in there, blend it in just so you can see what these other areas around it. So I will go back and add that. Let's see. Let's see if we can come over here where it's lighter. So it looks like there's almost a little bit of like fold in the skin here. So I'm going to add that little edge. I'm going to rest my hand whenever I want a straight line. This is all dry, so I let that dry. Rest my hand here. And then I'm trying to move it so it's not in the light. You can see better my brush stroke. And I'm going to come around here. And I'm really careful. I'm watching the edge of my eye, but I'm also really watching my reference. Because if I ever not sure how to paint something, the answer is in my reference image. It's not on my drawing paper. I feel like often when we're trying to figure something out, you stare, you're like, how did I get this? And you're like, try and work with that one, but that ain't it. The answer's in the reference. It's not on the painting. You gotta check that first and then come back. All right, so I get that. Now it looks like he's wearing eyeliner, right? Well, he's not a makeup fox. He's a regular fox. So I need to blend that in a little bit. Add just a touch of water, maybe a touch of orange to it. Whoop, too much water. And I can bring this, still too much water, around here now. There we go. This ain't too light. This covered that, filled that in. And then this edge is going to kind of soften around here too. Now I haven't done as much brushwork right around the eye, because I'm going to fill that in now. If you had done more, that's fine. See how it's a little lighter right there? That's interesting. There we go. Now, I don't want this just to be outline. I want this to blend in with his fur, right? I need to make it look like it's moving with his fur. So I'm going to do these, oh, look, there's some little red spots, kind of like a little eyebrowy look up here. So I'm going to do some of these little tiny marks where I lift the brush as I paint them so that I get that softer edge as if it's coming out. Now it's becoming a mass, so I got to move away from there. And I'll put some over here. Too much, a little less. Let's soak it up. Come on. This is my smallest brush from our pack here. The sun shifted now. Wherever I want my hand to go, it's a shadow. This is a little lighter, so we'll just kind of soften this edge. Maybe we'll bring some of these brush strokes down here. See, this is dark. That's too dark for it, isn't it? Let's get some of these in here. There's a little bit of a darkness this way that kind of comes down. So I am noticing the shadows of his fur there. This is too dark, so I'm going to add a little water to my brush, clean it up. And I'm going to try and lift this edge a little bit and soften that. There. Now here, this is where I need these little, see, little brush strokes for that little fur. So I can do some of these little guys. Now these are getting light real fast, so I might want to add a little more. Too much water. I'm going to come back now that that's a little drier. So I'm going to add this value in here, but I'm going to come back when that section's drier. So I have this. Even though this is light, there's still marks in there around his eye that I want to get. And notice again, just like when I layered the fur on the rest of him, to do the fur, I'm going to layer and I'm going to be conscious of the length and direction of my line so it corresponds to the length and direction of his fur. Now, I'm going to get some of this dark on here because there are dark values in here. I'm going to take a bunch of the moisture out. I'm going to start to put some of that really light, quick, less moisture, that word. No one likes that word, do they? Less water on the brush. There we go. Bring that up there. And this, and then here, this is really pretty red down here, isn't it? Let's kind of soften this edge. This looks like it's getting too light. Maybe I'll put some darker brush strokes in there. This looks like it needs to be a little darker around here. And then here, see how it's pretty dark in there? So now I might come in with some of that and just do, let's make sure it's not too much on the brush. So this was kind of reddish, and then here's his muzzle coming in here. And these are just tiny little brush strokes because it's real short fur. So it's almost like a texture. And I'm going to be putting in here as that comes up to it. And there's a lot there, right? So I can keep going. But it's almost like a texture, and I have to be quite as concerned about like my mark as much. I can just kind of play. And I'm going to go back in with that little bit of a reddish color that's there too. And his snout looks like it goes off the page, so I'm going to worry about those whiskers last. I'm going to put those in last. Might even do those with an ink pen. This is too much texture there, isn't it? Blends in a little more. Let's kind of fill that in. And here's where it softens. And then this is coming up this way. I need some of that reddish color I had in here. Let's see. Too much water. Let's lift a little bit of that up. And this is starting to come around here. Pretty red around here. I can do some of those. Just want tiny marks. I don't want blobs. And I just keep layering these colors in here. And again, I keep looking at the reference to try and figure out how that all is going to fit in there. And keeping my marks, they're getting pretty consistent there. Fur's not consistent. I gotta let it go in other different directions too so it doesn't look stripy. And let's come back with some of this color. And this is going to end up going off the page here, isn't it, with as much as I have. This was meant to be eye practice. So it's kind of fur practice, kind of eye practice, just kind of getting it all in here. Now for this light part, I want it to, oh, this has got to come down a little more, doesn't it? This is a little more red. For this light, I'm just going to, it would be just sort of flipping off, kind of coming that way. I want to put some of these little edges in there. Leave that part white. There'll be some dark in here with the red just to mix it up. I need more than just one color in there for sure. You always need to layer your colors to make it more realistic looking. And again, I'm not so concerned if I'm matching it exactly, but I want to get the gist of that. It's darker around the eye, it's lightening up here, there's a darker area, and start to like get the idea of, even though in these lighter areas there's going to be just some dark shadow in there, some other colors in there, and continue to build up these layers so that I'll start to get it. I might want to come back and darken things a second time once it's dry, if I decide this is not quite as dark as I want it to go. But that's basically, I'd approach it pretty much the same. Hope that helps. Thank you.